Welcome to all of you, and thank you for being here and joining us for today's teaching. As you know, the very first thing you have to do is check out your motivation and see what kind of thought are in your head. And if you have positive thoughts, really good. If you don't have positive thoughts, change it now. So please take a moment and uh, generate bodhicitta and settle your mind before we start. Before I start the teaching, I always say something like this. I pay homage to all the Buddhas, the lineage, bodhisattvas, especially to Shantideva, the great teacher who gifted us this profound and vast teaching. So with their blessings, may this teaching be of benefit to all sentient beings and especially help us to understand the nature of life and help us to find a real meaning of life and to understand, help us to understand the goal of this life and live with kindness, wisdom, and mindfulness. That's my motivation. These days, people have hard to understand what is the purpose and goal of their life because we usually think the money, the power, famous, all these are the goal. But these days, people are kind of understand that's not real my goal. So then what is the goal and purpose of life? So people really hard to find that. So the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas with their blessings and compassion help us to understand the nature of life, how to reduce and eliminate suffering. So as a Mahāyāna practitioner, if we don't have this kind of wish and commitment, then we will never do any good things for others and for ourselves. So whenever you meditate or study the Dharma teachings, to find your aim and making your commitment is important. So now, again, today we're going to study this teaching together. And as usual, as you know, this teaching is a guide for those committed to the Mahāyāna path. This teaching shows us how to awaken the altruistic mind of bodhicitta and embody it in every aspect of life. So our intention in studying these teachings is to plant the seed of bodhicitta within ourselves and to dedicate this practice to the liberation of all beings. So I encourage you to listen deeply and reflect on these teachings and then put them into your life. Now we are on the second chapter, the confession of faults. So Shantideva emphasizes the importance of purification as a foundation for the bodhisattva path and generate bodhicitta. So it is a profound practice that allows us to purify our minds and all the obstacles to enlightenment, awakening. Through this practice of confession, Shantideva encourages us to recognize our mistakes, not with kind of like self-punishment, right? But with the aspiration to develop, transform, and have a better life, happy life. So Shantideva teaches us to reflect deeply on the harm caused by our actions to ourselves and others. And Shantideva encourages us to reflect on our own lives and kind of the urgency of using this opportunity to purify. He always say that if you don't purify right now, you're not going to purify your mind. Then we have lots of obstacles because of the there's no purification. And so now is really good opportunity to purify the mind and to rely on the power of three jewels, right, for sport in our purification practice. That's the right now we're talking about the power of sport, three jewels. Buddhism is basically about the three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, nothing else. So if you know how to take refuge in them through confidence and based on your inner trust, and we call it faith, devotion, whatever, then you are a genuine Buddhist practitioner. Your confidence is cultivated through faith, devotion, and through study and direct sort of experience in your meditation. So that's really important. Never, just to understand, Buddhism is all about these three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, nothing else. So that's why they are the power of sport. Now I'm going to pick up where I left off last class, which is today, 58th stanza. Terang kona manchi shi devarandu parigmayan dagna me prinjuriti ten dom savaranjur. It says, it is unreasonable to relax and think, today at least I shall not die. For it is certain that a time will come when I shall become nothing. So this stanza, the first two lines talk about why we must purify ourselves quickly, as soon as possible. And um, it makes no sense to relax and think, today, definitely, I'm not going to die. Nagarjuna said in the Madhyamaka, our life is very uncertain, that we still have the chance to die between breathing in and out, or between falling asleep and waking up. It's true, but almost like 99% of people would think that I'm not going to die today, right? Think about, what do you think? Do you think you really believe that you're not going to die today? I think so. We all think, today I'm not going to die because I'm not sick, I'm healthy, I'm happy. So people think that, right? It's because people think that it helps them focus on their daily life and sort of long-term goals without being overwhelmed by fear or anxiety about death. But in Buddhism, the teachings encourage reflecting on death to inspire living with purpose and living with mindfulness of life, sort of fragility. So it's just that it's a sort of unrealistic to assume that today will not be our last day, as life is uncertain. By recognizing this truth, we should make effort and practice these kind of purifications, right, as a foundation of bodhicitta. That's very important, the first two lines. And then the last two lines of this stanza talk about how we need to reflect on the uncertainty of death. And it is important. It says, um, it is certain that a time will come when I shall become nothing. So that means we have to reflect on this uncertainty of death, and it is sort of inappropriate to feel lazy about practice. There is no certainty that death will not happen even today or tonight or tomorrow. So you see, thinking about death can bring profound benefits because it helps you focus on what truly matters, like your relationships, meaningful work, or personal sort of growth. Thinking about death all the time, it can reduce attachment. Um, lead to greater inner peace and satisfaction. Satisfaction, I always say this, brings happiness. So contemplating death can help us avoid unnecessary attachment and conflicts, and recognizing our limited time can help us appreciate the life we have right now, at this moment, and we can let go of unnecessary attachment. This practice, this kind of practice is known as the impermanence of life in Buddhism, right? And it is not mean to create sort of anxiety or fear, but to awaken a deeper sense of purpose. So there is absolutely no certainty that you will not die today. So that's why thinking about the uncertainty of death is important. And because it, causes you to do something good, something meaningful every single day. If you really understand, if you really think about death and deeper level of your practice, and you have a real sort of genuine experience of this practice, it causes you to do something good, something meaningful, something important. So that's that. Now the next 59th stanza. Dagla manjik seishin dali chirtar ngitharnjir dodin masawar manjir na chirtar dagayat devarnduk. So it says, who can guarantee me such fearlessness? How can I be certain of freedom from this? If I'm certain that I will no longer be here, how can I just feel comfortable? So it says, who can guarantee me such fearlessness? Fearless. This line suggests a search for a sort of source of inner strength and guidance, right? And then it says, how can I be certain of freedom from this? This line sort of questions whether freedom from fear of death or freedom from suffering of samsara is truly achievable. So this stanza suggests that we need to do the right thing immediately. It's because we have no idea when we will depart from this life. But our ignorance, right, has sort of not allowed us to be conscious of this sort of uncertainty until now. But now, that we are aware of it, if we want to do something about it, then it's the perfect time. And we should follow Shantideva's advice. We, human beings are really capable of helping others through their, love and compassion. And human beings are also capable of harming others through their anger and selfishness without sort of considering the other's suffering. That's because of selfishness. So human beings have the potential for both profound compassion or great harm. Some people commit acts very negatively. Others show sort of incredible kindness, even under the most challenging circumstances. So it's important to believe in yourself that you can purify your mind. Purify mind means like reduce or eliminate all these negative emotions, nothing really else. As a Buddhist practitioner, we should not really focus too much on outside, like, we should focus on in our mind and all these negative emotions. That's just because it's the creator, is the cause of all this unhappiness. The moment you realize your essence, that realization makes you you're the really blessed one, working on something that is beyond you at this moment doesn't mean it will be beyond your ability forever. So think about this line: who can guarantee me such fearlessness? Your practices like meditation, self-reflection, discipline can help guarantee you freedom from fear and suffering. That's the answer. Who can guarantee me such fearlessness? Your fearlessness arises the not from the absence of fear, but from developing the strength to face it with um, clarity and acceptance. So meditation practice, allows you to observe your thoughts and emotions without judgment, and by sitting with fear rather than avoiding it, right? Then you begin to see it for what it is. And this understanding can reduce your fear. So through your meditation and um, consistent effort, you can gradually cultivate the ability to live without fear. So here Shantideva says, if I'm certain that I will no longer be here, how can I just feel comfortable? If you have a meaningful and very happy life, then it is possible to feel comfortable with the certainty of no longer being here. Especially if your life is meaningful, because a meaningful life gives you a sense of purpose, sense of legacy, even if it's short. So when you know you have helped and contributed positively to others or even to yourself, you feel comfortable, even if you know you will no longer be here one day, for sure, but you feel really satisfied and happy and comfortable. So life's sort of impermanence can feel uncomfortable, but it's also what makes it precious. So if your life feels meaningful and happy, you will come to see death is not as bad as as you thought. So when you live with a purpose and um, meaningful, the fear of, as here said, like no longer being here can transform into acceptance, right? Even comfort. But here it means if you don't live with a good and meaningful life, then it is something that makes you uncomfortable and experience sort of regret. What is purpose? What is purpose, this life? You don't feel like you're doing something uh, meaningful. That's what it means, Shantideva said. Okay. Mm, now the 60, I think 60, right? 60 stanza. Munchun de shikpali dagla lakpa chayonna dagna tela ngonjini lama karangari. The past was experienced and now it is gone. What is left of that for me now? Yet through my great attachment to it. Oh, I have been going against my guru's advice. So this stanza talks about self-awareness, reflecting on what we have done and where we are now. This is very important, right? So in Buddhism, attachment to things like wealth, relationships, and other worldly desires is considered a source of suffering. But it doesn't mean these things are naturally bad or meaningless. But the problem is the clinging, right? Grasping that arise in relation to these things. The problem is not in the objects themselves. From a Buddhist viewpoint, attachment creates grasping, a mental state that clinging to things with the sort of expectation that they will bring lasting happiness. So it's when we attain what we desire, what we have, what we got, what we desire, we often also worry about losing it. So we don't sort of get what we want, and we feel frustrated and very unhappy. So this endless cycle of wanting or clinging is what keeps us in the cycle of dissatisfaction. So we have to understand that wealth and relationships can bring both joy and pain. It depends on how you handle them, right? So Buddhism doesn't say that we should sort of reject wealth, relationships, and other all these worldly things. Not at all. But Buddhism says that we should use them wisely. That means like we should use them like mindfully. That means, for example, enjoy your wealth and relationships without too many expectations and um, too much like attachment, and sort of understand that they're temporary. So if you have a like very expensive something, you use it, you enjoy, and then when one day something will happen to it for sure. Then, oh yeah, then if you understand, oh, this is temporary, something will happen, I will lose it or damage, whatever. You have that kind of like acceptance, then I think enjoy your wealth and your relationship, like relationship, for example. You enjoy with time and everything, but one day separate, that's for sure. And then you feel like really satisfied, oh yeah, the best relationship ever. So now separate. That's just what it is. So that's, I think Buddhism says that we should use them sort of wisely and mindfully, meaning sort of, like cultivate an attitude of non-attachment. That means like freedom from clinging, freedom from too much expectations, freedom from selfishness. So wealth can be used to help others and live a meaningful life. Relation Relationships can be source of love in um, everything. However, according to Buddhism, everlasting happiness and peace come from within, within. So it is not pointless to have wealth and relationships. It's because the suffering arises not from having these things, right? But suffering arises from by clinging to wealth, relationship, everything, which leads to dissatisfaction, too much expectations, then make you very unhappy. So happiness, freedom, peace come from within. Nothing has to do actually with outside. That's why it's important to um, think about and study and practice. And one big mistake is to clinging to these things is the source of ultimate happiness. That's what, like we ordinary people, usually 99% of people believe it, right? If you are very wealthy person, you have everything, you believe that brings you everlasting happiness, the genuine, the freedom and peace and everything. That's big misunderstanding according to Buddhism. So letting go of attachment doesn't mean, I always say this because people misunderstand. Um, it doesn't mean abandoning life or give up or, everything you have. It doesn't mean that. It means relating to life with wisdom compassion, balance, and freedom, all that. When we, all this impermanence we're talking about. So when we accept changes, we can stop clinging to things that are out of our control. And this frees us to engage fully with life without suffering and fear of losing them. For example, like you can enjoy a beautiful, sunset without wishing it would last forever. Oh, it's so beautiful. It's makes it brings me happy and peace and all this, and I wish it would last forever. So kind of similarly, appreciate what you have. For example, like enjoy your relationships without clinging to them. I mean, it's not that easy, but non-attachment allows you to love, genuine love, without trying to control, because there is no fear of jealousy or what do you call it, possessiveness. Love is about giving, right? Not grasping. I need you to make me happy. That's not love. So this is the Buddhist viewpoint of how to take care of each other, take care of this sort of worldly life, how to take care of the relationships. So the Buddhist path encourages us to enjoy these things without attachment and to hold them lightly, and recognize their impermanent sort of nature. That's the method, how to, enjoy these things without attachment. We have to practice that. It's just have this information in your head, it doesn't help. So, but through this practice, you will realize that happiness doesn't come from external things, but from sort of an inner state of being. Does it make sense? Through these practices and wisdom, we experience freedom, peace, and deeper joy because it releases you from fear, uh, grasping, like craving, and dissatisfaction. That's why this practice brings freedom and peace. But when we talk about non-attachment and relationships, it can feel challenging, especially those with sort of deep emotional connection to each other. Some people fear that practicing non-attachment will make their relationships sort of detached, right? But according to Buddhism, it does the opposite. Rely too much on another person for your happiness creates more unhealthy attachment. We think always like, oh, I need I need to make friends and all the relationships, otherwise my life is kind of feel meaningless, loneliness. It's just everything inside how you think. But practice non-attachment is not easy, but it's absolutely, as I said, it's a possible, capable. We are capable. We have to believe in ourselves. Practice non-attachment, believes me, allows you to cherish each moment without grasping for permanence, because you accept that lose is a natural part of life. We can't let it go. Usually we lose something. It brings us really difficult and can let it go. But once we practice, non-attachment, we can do that. So you create a sort of deeper connection, joy, peace, happiness. So again, this stanza is in sort of an expression of both realization and regret. It says, what is left of that for me? No, now. So it means like we have to realize that the attachment we had was pointless. It makes us suffer and is unreliable. And then it also says, I have been going against my guru's advice. It's because of the great attachment we have been sort of going against valuable guidance of our spiritual teachers, right? So here Shantideva suggested that we have to reflect on clinging to worldly attachments. We need to commit ourselves against doing negative actions that are against advice from our teachers. So here we are purifying ourselves of what we have already done with feelings of regret and making efforts to do purification practice for freeing ourselves from these kind of negative actions and not behaving this way anymore in the future. That's how it works. People are confused, like Buddhism all the time, talk about purifying negative karma, purifying mind. People don't understand how, like what is the sign, like your purification practice successful. How do you know it? The thing is, oh, I did this, that was wrong. I'm not going to do this again anymore in the future. That is, if you do it, if you keep that commitment and never do it again, That that is then you purified. How simple is that? But if you say these things and then do the opposite, oh, I've done this because of the habit, oh, I'm doing it again, then there is no such thing as purification. So it's sometimes people say there is like outer sign, inner sign, whatever to purify your mind, right? That's possible, but it's easy to understand what you're doing it. Like if you reflect on your past, actions, and then if you some people are, it's very pure, and some people are not. So if you recognize, oh, I did that, it's really harmful, and I regret, and I will never do it again. And if you really keep that commitment, you are pure. That's how it works, purification practice. That's why these two things that, regret and never do it again. You do that in front of the three jewels, right? You make that commitment. That's how it works. That's purification. Now, once you purify that, right? So it's how, if you harm somebody, and then now you're not harming anymore, that is what we call bodhicitta. So they're kind of same. When you practice purification, that's why Shantideva said there's four powers. Purification practice is the foundation of bodhicitta. That means when you harm somebody, now you're not harming because of your love, your compassion, then your bodhicitta is there. Once you have a bodhicitta mind, then you are a good practitioner. You can say you are a good teacher. Otherwise, these days is, I think, is kind of like, you know, for example, like what it mean like being a teacher in Buddhism, And there are at least like three different kinds of teacher. One teacher is like, who knows all this informations, like, like this. What are the Four Noble Truths? What is the definition of suffering of suffering? What are the, like 7 point of mind training? So you know all this information. It doesn't mean you have experience through your meditation, but you just like myself, I studied Buddhism and Buddhist philosophy so many years, and I know it, all this information. That doesn't mean I'm a good teacher, good practitioner. It means like I have lots of information. Now this is almost gone. Like you can see all this tech knowledge, right? Um, uh, there is like you can search like chat GPT, whatever, this artificial intelligence, all these things. Now like they're taking my job away. If you ask them, like you put it there, what are the Four Noble Truths? They will tell you everything. So you don't need this kind of teacher anymore. It's uh, it's better. You don't have to ask somebody, or who is not available, or maybe he's sleeping, or maybe. So you just take your phone and then ask, and they will tell you all this information. But that's just the information. As I said, it's the one teachers, lots of teachers like that. Then the second teacher is like, like someone who has a little bit, this purification practice, so that you have a little bit bodhicitta. That is really good because they can't have that. So then through your bodhicitta, you can help others, you can, live very meaningful life. And this is not like, I always say, it's not like, intellectual things, something you have to do it and you have to develop and all that. That's really good. And I totally believe that we all are capable of doing that. We can develop genuine bodhicitta, we can help others. That's the medium sort of teacher, like, that's second teacher. It's really good, better than the first teacher. And then the last one is, of course, teacher who's like reached enlightenment. That's we may possible, maybe not this lifetime. But anyway, so we have to sort of do something, not just like study the teachings and receive transmissions, and that's not enough. So we have to practice purifications and develop compassion and less attachment, all that. We can do that this lifetime. And then that brings us meaningful and happiness. Now, the next 61st stanza. Sun sen dadang dewi yin de nian dang xi pa nam pa ni, jik pa kai shin ro gu nan za dang men za gen jiao rong. It says, having departed from this life, and likewise from my relatives and friends, I must go alone elsewhere. Why make so much of all my friends and enemies? As usual, this tells us just that we leave behind everything when death comes, and we have no idea where our next life will take us. So it's important to reflect on a sense of, again, detachment and acceptance, as these are the only things we carry with us and truly, truly, truly matters. I always say, and I really think that if we live a meaningful, positive, and healthy life, then it doesn't matter. Then it doesn't matter what comes after death. It doesn't matter. So people who believe in the future lives, they always worry, like, where when I die, what happened, what will happen, where do I, you know, you don't have to worry anything. It's just if you live a meaningful, positive life, then it really doesn't matter what comes after death. If you live a meaningful and positive life, then if there is a next life, living meaningfully now could possibly influence your journey into it, according to Buddhism. So you will have a meaningful and positive life again because of you what you call created that karma, meaning your mind. This you created that habit. If there is no next life, then you have lived your best and the one you have right now. Either way, your life is great. On the other hand, if you live a negative life, such as, harming others, always holding onto negative thoughts, anger, resentment, um, jealousy, commit like harmful action, that always creates guilt, anxiety, and suffering, regardless whether there is a next life or not. So when you act negatively, it damages your relationships with the family, friends, and your community, etc. And these negative actions can lead to then loneliness, unhappiness, and a life filled with fear and regret, all that. Then, even if there is no next life, the suffering created in this life can feel like its own form of heal. That's why Buddhism teaches that whether you will get a good life or bad life after death depends on this life. This life. So that's why reflect on your actions and practice these purifications and work towards kindness. So this current life matters, really matters. And that's why now we have opportunity to receive the teachings, practice authentically the Dharma teachings. Then doesn't matter if there is a next life or not, no, whatever. Then we're just happy and have a meaningful life, this current life. That's why Buddha said this current life is matters. That's why Buddha sometimes when he teaches, when he walks, so mindfully, like, always like very, you can tell, like, I can like feel, the way he teaches and walks and talks, so gentle, so slow. That means like he's, always mindful. Otherwise, if we are not mindful all the time and then we talk without thinking, we talk so quick and then harm, and then we don't really recognize what kind of words we're using that harms others. So um, everything we do in this life, it matters. And even if life ends with a death, the impact you have on others, your friends, your community, and the world lives on. Your action, love and wisdom become part of, how do I say, collective human legacy because the things you do can influence others, right? Think about these teachers, great teachers. They're gone. They're gone. But think about their legacy. How much influence others. So then your, your kindness, your generosity and your positive behavior can inspire others to act similarly. So we have to change this. We have to practice these things. These things we're really capable. We can do this every single day. So these positive actions can be passed down through your family, friends, and benefits the whole society and everything. That's why in Buddhism there is a emphasis on living fully in the present and positively. Buddha, his students, disciples always asked him, like, what should I do next month? What should I do next year? Buddha always said, don't worry about that. He always said, living fully in the present and positively and mindfully. Because living a positive life benefits not just you, but also those around you because of your compassion, because of your bodhicitta, your patience, your wisdom, which brings deep satisfaction and make life worth living. That's why, lots of people don't understand these things and then they just don't see what's the point of living. And then they suicide themselves all the time. That happens every single day. So a life life lived with purpose, eliminate negative actions, and reduce fear of the unknown, including death. So if we live with these good qualities, then the question of the next life becomes less urgent when we make this life as positive and meaningful as possible. And it also allows us to live without fear of death and focus on what we can control, our thoughts, our actions, and how we treat others and treat ourselves every single day, you know? So that's why when you reflect on and think about death every time, every day, helps bring all these good qualities. Not about death is not about what will happen in the future. The meaning of practicing, death brings these qualities into your life. This life. That's why you have to think about death. And then it sort of encourages you to do something meaningful because death is uncertain. That's why it's important, right? To think about death. Not about like, oh, what will happen in the future and ah, I'm worried that death is uncertain. I don't know what should I do. No, not like that. So, okay. Mhm. That's all for today. Now meditate. So for today meditation, we will alternate between looking at the mind, okay? Looking at the mind and resting, meditation. So as usual, be comfortable and relaxed. Take a deep breath to settle your mind. Let it go, everything. Now you look at your mind. That means let the mind rest without any thoughts, any thought, and relaxing in this sort of present moment. So don't let any feeling or thought arise in your mind without recognition. Otherwise, you don't have to control or force, when you have a feeling or thought arise in your mind. That's okay. But without recognition, then it takes you away from your meditation. You don't like stop thinking, or when your feeling and thought arise in your mind, you don't feel sort of, oh, this is not good, not like that. But when thought arise, okay, I have this thought, and then just recognize and then relax your mind. Don't follow it. So you must know how to observe and recognize the presence of every feeling and every, thought. Let it come, let it go. That's what they say. For example, when feeling of sadness arise, for example, then immediately recognize it. That's why mindfulness is the key. You have to like immediately recognize it rather than follow the feeling of sadness. We always follow, one after another, one after another. Meditators don't do that. Oh yeah, okay. I have this sadness arise in my mind. So you recognize it and then don't follow. Then just try to relax. If the feeling of sadness continues, then continue to recognize it. That's what we have to do. By doing it over and over again. Your meditation practice begins to train you how to stay without wander away. Because you're recognizing, you're mindful, and then just relax. Then it arises again as an ordinary person. Then recognize, then just relax. So it can help you learn how to continue sort of more open and with this mindfulness. So in this way, your meditation can help you to discover this beautiful inner freedom and happiness. So you're looking at your mind only. That means your mind is not focused on anything. Just rest and try to, rest in a completely sort of relaxing. See, once you have relaxation, this kind of, then if you want, you should allow yourself to sort of enter more deeply into the experience of this amazing self-awareness. So that means focus on your attention on this clear nature of the mind. So you should look deeply into your natural and relax on that as much as you can. Just to remain in this present moment, relaxation on the self-awareness. If you have difficult meditate on this self-awareness, then you should meditate also, focus your breath, breathe in, breathe out, very gently, very slowly. So also, by practicing in this way, you are more and more relaxing, more and more calming. Then your thought, all this activity will diminish so that there is a sort of growing sense of clarity and stability. So that's how you do, okay? If you don't know how to relax on the self-awareness, then just focus on breathe in, breathe out. Your mind, kind of let your mind dissolve into the breath, because when you breathe in, breathe out, this only happens in the present moment. So you're good. If you know more, meditate on self-awareness, just do on that, okay? Now your meditation is continue. For a few minutes, please.